Welcome to This Daring Adventure podcast, where we work on bridging the gap between where we are and where we want to be in order to live a bigger and bolder life. In this podcast, we will provide inspiration, tips, and skills you need to make your life the adventure you want it to be. Here's your host, mindset mentor, and life coach, Trista Gurton.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Daring Adventure. I am Trista Gurton, your host, and I am thrilled, very happy that you are here. Thank you for tuning in. Today, I'm going to be talking to Charlotte Rijkenberg, who is the creator of the letsmoveabroad.com platform and also the author of the recently released Let's Move Abroad Guide to Moving Overseas. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm so excited to talk to you. You know, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I've spent many years living and working overseas, so this is a lot of fun for me. Thank you for your time. Okay, so why don't we dive right in, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started living abroad and why.
Yeah, of course. I don't know about how it started with you, but for me, I think if I'm really looking at how it started, like it was a feeling. It was this unexplainable urge, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in Amsterdam with my boyfriend, and we were having a great time, great friends, family close by. But there was this unexplainable urge that wanted more, this need for adventure, I guess. And at one point I realized that it was a move abroad, that we wanted to expand our experience and our careers and move abroad. So yeah, that's when we decided that's what we wanted to do. And we actually decided to move to Sydney because of the language, because back in the days we were, young, so we could get a working holiday visa. And it was a country that I always wanted to visit anyways. Mm-hmm. And it was, down under, far away. And it was for us a great opportunity to explore that side of the world. So yeah, that's, I guess, from that unexplainable urge, it was the realization that we wanted something more and dive into a new adventure.
Okay. And how old were you at the time?
I think I was like 24. Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty young.
Yeah. Had you done a lot of traveling before that? Like, were you a big traveler?
I've always been intrigued by traveling and, seeing other cultures and exploring different countries. That was always something I was really intrigued by. And I studied abroad before that when I was in my early 20s. I studied at Berkeley in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So there was, it didn't come as a huge surprise, I guess, for the people around me. But yeah, there was always this interest in other countries in the world. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And so how many countries have you lived in since?
So yeah, we've lived in Sydney for 5 years, actually. So what started out as, let's see what we can do, moving with 2 suitcases and a visa and just a big dream, turned out to be like 5 years of amazing adventures in Sydney. Yeah. And then we actually lived all over for a year and traveled the world with our 1-year-old son. Mm. So we had kind of like digital nomads. We lived in America, in Taiwan actually as well. So we kind of traveled the world and stayed at some places for a longer time, and in Canada as well, actually, your home country.
Oh, okay, nice.
And then we went back to the Netherlands for a little bit and moved to Dubai. Okay. So that's where we are at the moment. So, yeah.
Okay. Very nice. And so how do you think it's changed you?
In so many ways. I think the main thing that stands out for me is that it has given me this amazing sense of confidence and trust in myself and my, unexplainable urges. Yeah. It's such a big and profound change. You know, you're starting from scratch in an unknown country. Yeah, it's down to you to make it a success, right? And that has taught me so many things, and has led to incredible adventures and opportunities, including starting Let's Move Abroad and writing a book. And for me, the main thing that stands out for me is that the confidence boost and a sense of pride in myself for building a life that I'm happy with. And you know, that gives me so many amazing opportunities and memories and really, living my best life, I guess.
You know, I think you're right. And I think, you know, for myself, I really notice, you know, the ability to manage change and problem solve. And it is such an amazing opportunity for growth and expansion. I think that happens much quicker than normal. Like if you were, you know, in other situations, it's just an opportunity to 10 times your learning and your development, I think.
Totally. And I think that's one of the things that I think is so beautiful, that in a short amount of time you're thrown in the deep and all these challenges are hitting you, and you're just like, I guess you get this like bag of tricks that you didn't know you have, and you're just sitting on your feet and making it work. And you know, some setbacks are, you know, exhausting and emotionally draining, but then there are other things that you get so much energy out that you're like, I did this, you know, and then you're ready to move on, and you're able to do it. I think, that's one of the amazing things. Like it really makes you a well-rounded person, in my opinion. I feel, having been exposed to all those setbacks and challenges and putting yourself out there to, again, start a life from scratch, it's humbling, and it's a great way to learn more about who you are and what you want. Like, I think one of the things that, you know, you grow up in a safe environment with your family and friends, but when you leave that, their opinions, they still matter, of course, but it's not a constant, they're not constantly there. And so you have to figure out what you want. And obviously you talk to them for advice, but it might not be something they've experienced. So it's really you that have to decide what you want and what that life looks like. And that, I think, forces you to really think about what you want. And I think it's a great opportunity to learn more about yourself and what you want to, you know, do in life.
Yeah. And I think just changing countries like that is very freeing, and it does give you a new sense of independence. Whereas, you know, things you never would have considered or you never would have done, just being in the confines of, with your family, with your friends, and just those habits and patterns that you've grown up with, just, you know, removing yourself from that environment just opens you wide up to all sorts of new experiences and opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think, to me, it's having that experience. I feel it makes people better. I think it made me better. I'll talk for myself. It might not make everyone better, but I think for me, it personally made me better. I think it made me a better, nicer, more open-minded person.
Nice. And one of the things too is I always, even just taking a solo trip abroad is very empowering. And that, like you mentioned, that rush, like, wow, I did this. Even, you know, taking a trip and being by yourself and having that experience, it is exhilarating. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree. I remember when I was going to the US to study there, I was going to do a road trip from LA to San Francisco by myself. And it was the first trip I was by myself. And I was, I think I was 21 because, I was allowed to drive. And I just remember that the whole like, I think I took like a week to do that drive. And I think that whole week I just felt this constant pride of myself. And I was just so, I mean, I was making awkward selfies, sitting by myself in a restaurant, eating dinner, but I was just so full of all the experience that I was having, and just this sense that, you know, I can do these things by myself. And it's an amazing feeling. Like, yeah, it's really something unique, I think.
Mm-hmm. All right. So tell us a little bit about the Let's Move Abroad platform and how that started.
Yeah, so I think for me, when I moved abroad, even before I moved abroad, like a lot of people would approach me and ask for advice, like, how are you doing it? What made you decide to do it? You know, all these sorts of questions. And it continued when I was living abroad, and I helped a lot of friends, but also friends of friends with tips to move abroad. And I realized that a lot of people want to move abroad, but they get too overwhelmed, or they have setbacks, and then they park their plans. And I think knowing how incredible living abroad is and how incredible it can be for people, I want to inspire people to move abroad and help them. And so I got this idea of like creating a platform that's really about straightforward and practical advice, and really help people do it themselves. Because I think in the end, it's about overcoming certain fears that you might have. And that's why I talk a lot about the mental preparation in my book as well. But then it's also about action. And that's when I started to write my book. And I've talked to a lot of expats, including yourself, of course.
Yeah.
But I also talked about to a lot of people who had that dream, but didn't realize it to that point. And I was just curious to know what made them stall their plans and what they were afraid of. And I think for a lot of people, apart from the overwhelm of the idea of planning it all, because it's a big move to plan, and there's a lot of practicalities involved. A lot of people had this fear of change. They're afraid to take the risk, leaving their friends and family behind. It's a big change that a lot of people fear. So I really wanted to create a guide meets workbook, basically, that helps people every step along the way with activities that they can do, so that they are actually actively working on it step by step, and realizing at some point that, hey, look at me, I'm actually pretty far, and I'm overcoming my fears, and I'm taking these steps, and I'm closer to realizing this dream than I've ever been before. And that at some point they are going to do it. And I really wanted to be, I guess, that mentor along the way to help them realize that dream.
No, and I think you've done a really nice job, both on the platform and with the book. You have a lot of interesting stories on the platform, a lot of really helpful articles. And then the book, I found it is very straightforward and very comprehensive. And I wish I had something like that years ago, when I went to Australia. When I went to Australia, I think I was 20. I did the same sort of work visa. I think I had a small little backpack, $1,000 in traveler's checks, and like my dad's credit card, and I just went. And luckily, like, we had a family friend who was in Sydney, but I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I just went, right? But your book really covers everything, and I think it's such a helpful tool to help you prepare, as you said. And you have all the tips and the checklist. Like, you really covered everything from A to Z.
Yeah, well, as much as I could. I think for me, the main thing is as well that I realized that every move is unique, right? Like, even though our stories of our moves to Australia are very similar, in the sense that we both moved there with a working holiday visa, with one backpack, not a lot of money in the bank. Like, there were probably differences in the challenges that we faced or the setbacks that we had, So I think that's one of the things that I find really important to, tell people as well, is that it's not a set in stone plan, but what I'm trying to give you is something so that you can make it your own, because it will be unique.
Right.
And there might be setbacks and challenges that you face that I've never faced, and that I might not cover in such a degree in the book, but that, I will give you the tools at least to help you overcome them and face them. And I think that's the important thing, is that, it's really about giving them the opportunity to do it themselves.
Right. Yeah. And just all of the points to cover, like in terms of considerations, like things that you might not have thought of in organizing yourself to move abroad, I think is one of the most useful resources of the book, because there are a lot of considerations. So just pointing people in the right direction and making sure that all the bases are covered is really important.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's not already, now that the book is out for like 2 months, like having people sending me emails with how much the book has helped them. Like that's really what's driving me. Like I really, like for me, giving people that confidence to live their dream and to do it. Like that's for me. I'm just so happy that I've overcome my own challenges with writing the book to then actually are helping people, and it's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, you've done a great job. So one of the aspects of the book, you cover both, the emotional well-being and some of the mental health, the mindset, and the emotions that we face. And I know this is something that I really struggled with for many, many, many years. And I think it is one of the key aspects of, both pre-departure, departure, living abroad, and sort of, once you settle in, post culture shock, is learning how to effectively manage our minds and our emotions so that we're not overwhelmed. And you have 2 chapters, right? The first chapter is Prepare Your Mind, chapter 2, and then chapter 9, Understanding the Emotional Journey. Yeah. And I really think these are really important parts. And how come, what made you decide to include that? Because it's probably not very typical in terms of what I've seen in guidebooks.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I strongly believe that it's a huge part of planning a move. And actually, I feel it's the first thing you should start with. And I think, like, obviously, I did a lot of research as well when I was, preparing to write the book and during writing. And I felt, sadly, that the mental preparation was often overlooked or ignored. So I felt very strongly to put this part in the book, because I feel like if you have that mindset right, and you have been able to prepare yourself mentally as much as you can, I feel it will give you this mental safety net that will make you stronger to face those setbacks and challenges a lot better. Because I think it's not about, I still feel a lot of emotions as well, like, expat guilt, all these things. Like, it's just part of living abroad. But it doesn't mean that you can't give yourself the best preparation or the best environment for you to face it. It's about properly understanding your wants and needs, but also your fears and triggers. Like, that's important to know so you can face those setbacks and challenges a lot better. And I think that's why I actually decided to almost start the book with that, because I feel if you focus on your mindset, that's how you set yourself up for success. The practicalities obviously are important. You need to find a job, you need to find a house, but you won't be able to do all that if there are major mindset issues, if you have a constant fear, it's not going to be pleasant, and it's not going to be giving you the best environment to set yourself up for success. So yeah, I felt very strongly and still feel very strongly about it, that, it's that sense of determination that you need to build, which is, and that mindset. I've read this amazing book, which is called Mindset, by Carol Dweck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I would highly recommend it to anyone in general, but if you want to move abroad, I think it's very interesting because she talks about, growth mindsets. And for me, having a growth mindset, which means that, you are open to learn from your mistakes. It means that you don't compare yourself constantly with others, like all these things that allow you to grow and learn on the way, which you will have to do when you're living abroad or moving abroad, are all these things which I think are so important. And why I talk a lot about it in my book, because I honestly think that is what sets you up for success. The practicalities are important. You need to do them, but it's a lot easier if you have that great starting point with a strong growth mindset and the ability to face any setbacks or challenges.
Yeah. No, and I think just having that initial awareness, that you will be a little homesick, you will feel the loneliness, you will feel the fear, and that's okay. Nothing has gone wrong. Allowing for your emotions and some of the, learning from it, as you said, and becoming more resilient, building that self-confidence that you can figure things out. I mean, it's a huge part of the journey. And as I said, for myself, it was something that I really struggled with for years, with a lot of doubts and questions about whether I was doing the right thing and moving around a lot. I don't know if you've seen, but certainly with my line of work as a humanitarian aid worker, people moving around a lot, thinking that it was better over there than where they were presently. And, the idea that, it's not better over there, and you can manage your mind so that you have the capacity to be just as happy where you are right now than, being over there. Like it doesn't matter where you are, you have the exact same capacity to be happy. So over there is not better than here.
Yeah, totally. And making it work with what you have in that moment at that time, I think is very important as well, because I think, having traveled around and lived in various places, there is no perfect place, in my opinion. Every country has something, that it's never going to be perfect. Like I loved Australia, but it's not perfect for me because it's too far away from my family, right? Like, so there's always these little things, but accepting that and then creating the best life in that moment for yourself, that's, I think, what, makes a successful life and a successful move abroad. And it's that accepting that, no, it's not going to be better somewhere else. And it doesn't have to be. Like, you can be very happy in this place at this time with what you have and what you are surrounded with.
Yeah, and it's a decision. It's a decision to be happy and to enjoy it and to make the best of it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also from like the people I've met during my journeys, like having that sense of, let's make it. We're far away from family, and friends, but let's together make this the best possible time of our lives, right? And I think that leads to so many amazing opportunities and memories, and I think that's been great.
Yeah. And I think you do consciously, like going back to the mindset, is that you do consciously focus on the things that you enjoy and the things that are good, and the opportunities, instead of getting fixated on complaining and what's not working or what you don't like.
Exactly. And I think also taking the time for that, because for me, like I struggle with bureaucracy, right? Like, like the paperwork, the endless waiting, like I can get very frustrated with that very easily. But now having, lived abroad for over 10 years and have experience with a lot of bureaucracy, because when you move abroad, you basically have to do everything, right? Insurance and sign like all like tax papers, you name it, everything you have to do from scratch. And it can get very frustrating. But what I've learned as well is to just accept it and to be patient. And now I'm so relaxed when I need to do paperwork. I'm so confident with, doing it. I have this totally different mindset and a sense of acceptance. But what I've also done is taken the time to realize that. And, it's like you sit down for tea and you just reminisce about that. And you're just like, you know what? I've grown significantly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing so much better with dealing with all this paperwork and, bureaucracy shenanigans. And just taking a moment, even if it's like 5 minutes, just to
Celebrate.
Say that to yourself,
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's so powerful.
Yeah. Pat yourself on the back, celebrate the wins. It is important. I think you're right. And yeah, certainly with things like, I was thinking about this the other day, like with bureaucracy or anything, any of the challenges that I've faced, I've been here in Lebanon for 6 years now. And it's not arguing with reality. If you're standing in line for your driver's license or whatever it is, instead of thinking it shouldn't be this long, it shouldn't be this complicated, just accepting it, like that's the way it is, and that you're not arguing with reality, that it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
And comparing it, I found like comparing it to the way you think it should be, like it is at home, right? Like somehow I think that's also another pitfall, is that you think it should be more like it is at home, where you wouldn't necessarily have those lines or all of those issues.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, our minds have amazing powers. And one of the things that we can do is make things look and feel much better than they actually are, right? I have a lot of friends who've lived abroad and then at some point in their journey decided to move back home because they missed family, they missed their friends, and they left moving back home thinking, they would spend all these weekends with their family, with their friends. But the truth was different. The truth was a lot of your friends are in a different phase of their life and they're busy with kids or, soccer practice, you name it. And it's this bubble that bursts. And all of a sudden you realize I made something up in my mind and it's not, it's not true. And actually a lot of them have moved back abroad again and packed up their things. I think that's the thing, it's really that awareness of the now and of what you want and not making things look better than they are. Like really honestly ask yourself, do I really think this will be the case? Or, am I hoping this? What am I missing? What am I trying to do? And I think sometimes, it's not always what we had envisioned.
Right.
But that's being that open about it and learning from it. I think that's the important thing for sure.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So when you're speaking to people and they're thinking about moving abroad, like what are some of the most common questions or information that they're looking for?
Yeah, I think a lot of people that what I mentioned earlier is that they want to know what it's like to live away from family and friends. I think that's a fear a lot of people share, like some have older parents that might be sick or, that need support or, they have a very tight group of friends that they know since they were young and leaving, that secure blanket is something that a lot of people are scared of, and a lot of people are curious about how they do that. Like, how do you leave your family and friends behind? and how do you start that new life abroad and make new friends, right? Because I think, as many people have this tight group of friends, and that's very safe and secure, and might never have been in that face that challenge that they have to make new friends, right? And I think so that's definitely a big thing. And then the other is just like, how did you do it? Which is a very broad question, right? Yeah. But for me, like, that's I come back to the mindset again, and I tell people, like, if this is something that is like, I'm curious, why they ask that question as well, right? And I love that conversation as well. And so I always ask them, like, how long have you been living with this dream? Like, what does this dream look like, and where does it come from?
Yeah.
And then some of them don't actually know, and that's why in my first chapter in the book, I also talk about, creating like a moving abroad dream map, and doing this exercise, which is called the why. And it's very simple. It's just asking yourself, why do I want to move abroad? You answer that, and then you continue asking yourself why for at least 2 more times. And that's when you get this true motivation, this true reason that you want to move abroad. And 9 out of 10 times when I do this with people who dream of moving abroad, they just they are so surprised. They had no idea of these underlying motivations. And it's like all of a sudden they see the light and they're like, oh my God, this is why I want this. And this is why I need to do it. Right. And I think that's really powerful. And I think a lot of people are just stuck in the practicalities and are stressed about it and overwhelmed about it. And then, they ask a question like, how did you do it? And I basically always reply, well, you can do it too. You just need to really know why you want to do it.
Right.
And so that's, where you find your determination and your motivation, your willpower, basically, which is so much more powerful than any moving abroad checklist out there.
Yeah. No, and I think you're right. Like, that's really important when you're trying to make that decision to move. And then it's also going to be important to remember that and refer back to that when things do get a little bit challenging, or you're feeling a little homesick, just to remind yourself of your why. And that can be a very powerful reminder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I personally sometimes struggle with expat guilt. Like, I have 2 young kids, and obviously very excited grandparents in my home country who want to see their grandchildren. And I do deal with that, not on a daily basis, but on a regular basis. But then on the other hand, I'm reminded of the amazing adventures I'm giving my children as well. And I think, and when they do see their grandparents, it's very intimate and very, because we either stay at their place or they stay at our place, and it's really like living together for 2-3 weeks or even longer, and having a complete immersion in our life. Right. Whereas instead of going, and visit them for a cup of tea for an hour on the weekend, So I think that's, for me, it's like, yes, of course, it would be ideal if they would live close by, but I also know the benefits, and I have to remind myself of that constantly. Yeah, but it's knowing your why and talking to yourself that way as well, which is really important.
Right. And so, do you have a number one piece of advice that you offer to people when they're moving abroad?
Don't start with the practicality. Start with you. Okay. Like, what's your state of mind? Why do you want this? Like, that's where you have to start. And I think it will all get easier from there as well. Like, planning a move, there's so many things involved. But once you have your mental safety net ready and your mental state and your state of mind, for me, that's where it all starts. And then, you have this this motivation, and then you're open to new opportunities. And I think that's where it all has to start. And then for I guess my second piece of advice is be open to new opportunities. I think a lot of people have this dream in their head, which is very fixed. And I think when you move abroad, you have to have this sense of flexibility and openness for new things and new opportunities. So it might mean a career change. It might mean a different country than what you had in mind. Like, don't get stuck into this ideal dream of that you have in your mind, right? Mm-hmm. I think having that sense of flexibility, that's what's important, because things will change. They inevitably will change. Like how well you plan, it doesn't matter. Things will change. You know, there will always be setbacks. There will always be things that happen. So don't get fixed on this ideal plan. And have a backup plan, have a plan C, and really have this sense of flexibility, because that will allow you to, shift gears, change plans, and get ultimately to what you want, which is move abroad.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I like that. That makes sense. Do you think, have you had a lot more people looking to move abroad post-pandemic? I'm just wondering if, things have changed so much. Mm. And I know I've spoken to people that were never considering it before, but are certainly interested now. But are you seeing a significant increase in people wanting to move abroad?
Yeah, I do. And I think it has several reasons. I always like reading about those trends, for example, now there's a huge trend of Americans moving to Mexico. And so, I think COVID did a couple things. One, obviously, the remote work system that has gained in popularity, a lot more flexibility from companies to allow their employees to move abroad. But then on the other end, it's also countries who are changing the visa rules and making it a lot more appealing to move to their country, right? Either it's in Texas or just, an easier visa that you can apply for, or all these things that makes it a lot more achievable than a couple of years before. And I think now that people have seen, that it's more attainable, I think more people are changing their minds and feel interested to move abroad. There's definitely, I think, this rise in people who feel they want to change their lives and probably get to the conclusion that a moving abroad adventure is the way to go.
Yeah, and I really am struck by the number of countries now which do have these digital nomad visas, and sometimes I do sort of sit and go through them all. And I mean, there are websites list all the countries. I'm like, oh, Mauritius, oh, Portugal.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think like a year ago or something, I think it was the Bahamas who had like this 12-month remote visa, and I was just, oh my God, it's just these opportunities. And I think that's it's more in the news. It's often in the news that countries have changed their visa requirements and introduced new visas, and all of a sudden people are like, hold on, I can spend 12 months in the Bahamas for a lower cost of living. And in a beachside hotel or apartment, why not, right? And I think that's the thing as well. Like for me, going back actually to questions people ask me often, is one of the questions people ask me often is like, is this going to be your life forever? And I'm always like, forever is a big word, and I think now also with these opportunities, people realize it doesn't have to be forever.
No.
You can do something like this for a year or two and go back and have gained this amazing experience, have faced new opportunities, gained amazing memories. And all of this is possible because of the new visas and requirements and things. And I think that has opened a lot of opportunities for people out there who might have been a little bit cautious about it, and now all of a sudden see that, you know what, I don't have to do this forever. I can do this for a couple months and do something amazing.
Exactly. Yes. I think thinking about it as in forever can be quite overwhelming. And definitely, even for myself, it kind of makes me a little panicky. But yeah, I mean, you can always go home. I probably will do it forever. But yeah, I know, no, just taking it, one day at a time, one trip at a time, one move at a time. And you can always go home. So don't get
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I say as well. Like, whatever you do, always make sure you have money in the bank for a return ticket home.
Yeah.
And then, you'll move back home.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, isn't as easy as I'm saying at that moment. But, like if you want to try it out for a year, try it out for a year and go for it. And then see where it lands you, right?
Yeah. So do you have, interesting stories that from your time living abroad that you like to share?
I think for me, it's the stories of the people that I've met, like, and from all over the world with different cultures, different backgrounds. And for me, it's the lessons that I've learned from them that I feel very, it's just a great feeling to have had that experience. And I love, the moments that I had with friends. I'll give you one example. Like, I feel like there's always a common mindset with the people I've met abroad, especially, the expats abroad. And then it's this sense of community that you build, and also that they're always there for you. Because they become your family. They're the only family you have in that place where you live, right? And I feel that is something I feel it is so beautiful, and those moments that they are there for you when you need it, and also this sense of let's do it together, like whether it's going away for a weekend or helping someone out when, they need a job, for example. And I think that's really, unique to that community of people who live abroad. That it's that sense of we're in this together. We might have very different opinions, different interests, all these things, but what unites us is that sense of living abroad, and that we want to help each other, and that is that common ground that's very powerful, I think. That for me is something I feel very happy with, having experienced that.
And you do form these bonds that go much deeper, quicker, I find.
Yeah, exactly. And what I always find interesting, like, talking to some of my friends here the other day, like, she told me about this friend that she had, who she met when she lived somewhere else abroad. And she said, like, you wouldn't know that that's my friend. Like, she said, we're so different. We're different in the way we dress. We're so different in our interests. We're so, different in our upbringing, in our beliefs. But she said, it doesn't matter. Like, we're the closest friends ever. And I think that sense of openness towards people is so special. Because sometimes when we're, back home, and, you kind of have this, like, these are my friends, and if someone new comes in, it's like, oh, who are you? It's like this suspicion. It's a suspicion or something. And I feel like when you live abroad, you open yourself up to people and really get to know them on a different level very quickly. And I think that's pretty unique and has given me some incredible friendships. So yeah.
And I've enjoyed, like, especially with some of the people that I've met, some of the friendships I've had have lasted years and years, and others, I've moved away and I've never spoken to them since, and we sort of kept in touch briefly. But just having those relationships, whether they're forever or just for a couple of years, they really are impactful and do make the experience for me wherever I am. They're an important part of the experience overall.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Yeah. So you're living in Dubai currently. Do you have any idea where you want to go next or what your plans are?
Well, yeah, I think like Dubai has been really great. And I think I could spend another 2 years here for sure. But, what we were just discussing about COVID and some other, I guess, political and economical changes that are happening at the moment, I feel I would be keen to get a little bit closer to home. So my sister lives in France and my parents actually are moving to France as well. So I guess I inspired them. So yeah, probably like a max 2-hour flight, somewhere closer. That would be ideal, but let's see. Those things, it takes time, right? From the moment you think about it to then actually doing it. But yeah, probably.
Nice. Okay. Well, do you have any other advice? Anything else you want to add?
Well, I think for anyone listening at the moment, if this is a dream, you've been dreaming about for a long time, I would say, don't look back in 10 years' time, regretting, your decision for not going after your dream. I think I personally believe we only live once. So, just try it. And if you really unsure about leaving your family and friends or have any other things that are holding you home, like just try it for 3 months, do a volunteer program, somewhere and just experience that and then take it from there. Right. I know actually a lot of people who teaching abroad for a year and then they've never left. Right. So I think I'm not saying, you will never leave, but I'm just saying, it just goes to show that if you try it, you never know where it lands you. It might take you home in a year's time. It might take you on another adventure, but just go and do it. That's I guess my last advice.
Right. I wholeheartedly agree. I can't recommend it more. So thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, so people can find you on the letsmoveabroad.com platform. And your book, Let's Move Abroad, is available on Amazon and I guess wherever else you buy your books. I think it would make a fabulous Christmas present, maybe, if you know someone who's interested or thinking about possibly moving abroad, if not for yourself. So definitely look it up. I highly recommend it. And we'll put all of this in the show notes so people will know exactly how to get a hold of you and where to find you. And thank you again. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Trista. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for listening in. And we'll have another episode in 2 weeks. If you are at all interested in trying coaching for yourself, I do offer free 1-hour coaching sessions. You can find the link to my calendar in the show notes or head over to my website at tristagurton.com. And we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this Daring Adventure podcast with your host, Trista Gurton. We hope you enjoyed the tips and conversations on how to get excited about life again. As always, you can head to tristagurton.com for additional resources and to book a one-on-one coaching session. You can also follow Trista on Instagram at Trista V. Gurton. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.